Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Here I am going to tell you about the anatomy of the neck. So neck is relatively a narrow, flexible portion between the head above and the chest below. The function of neck includes the transportation of food tube, air tube and neurovascular bundle between the head and the chest. The upper limbs originate from the cervical region during their embryological development. Also, the passageway for the blood vessels and nerves to and from the upper limb are occurring through the neck. So, the boundaries of the neck. In this diagram, we can see anteriorly the neck is bounded by the anterior mid-sagittal line, and posteriorly the neck is bounded from external occipital protuberance above up to spinous process of C7 vertebrae below. And above we can see there is superior nuchal line, then imaginary line from angle of mandible up to the mastoid process. So over here we have the angle of mandible, and over here we have the mastoid process. Then the lower margin of the body of mandible. So this is the superior boundary. Inferiorly we have the superior border of clavicle and the acromion process of the scapula. So these are the boundaries of the neck, and here we have discussed the boundaries again: superiorly, inferiorly, and then we come to the surface anatomy of the neck. So in the neck some structures can be palpated in the midline. These are from above downwards. We have body of the hyoid bone, then thyroid cartilage, then cricoid cartilage, trachea, isthmus of the thyroid gland, and the suprasternal notch. And on the posterior side of the neck, the structures which can be palpated are inion, nuchal groove, vertebra prominence, ligamentum nuchae, which covers the spines of C2 and C6 vertebra. On the lateral side of the neck, we have sternocleidomastoid, trapezius, and external jugular veins. Now the muscles and the triangles of the neck are: to facilitate the seemingly complicated area, the neck is divided into two major triangles, that is the anterior triangle and the posterior triangle, with the help of a muscle known as sternocleidomastoid muscle. So this area which is lying anterior to the sternocleidomastoid muscle and inferior to the inferior border of mandible is known as anterior triangle, and the area which is lying posterior to the sternocleidomastoid is known as posterior triangle. So here we have the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Area in front of it is anterior triangle, and area behind is the posterior triangle. So this is the sternocleidomastoid muscle attachments. It has two heads, that is clavicular head and the sternal head. Sternal head arises from the manubrium, and the clavicular head arises from the medial 2/3 part of the anterior surface of the clavicle, and the insertion is on the mastoid process. This muscle is supplied by the accessory nerve, spinal accessory nerve, that is 11th cranial nerve, and the action of this muscle is when it acts bilaterally, it causes protrusion of the neck, and when it acts unilaterally, means if only one-sided sternocleidomastoid muscle contracts, it will cause turning of the head or turning of the chin towards the opposite side. So this is the action of this muscle. Then we are taking the another topic, that is the anterior triangle of the neck. It is very important topic. This anterior triangle of the neck has some boundaries. So when we discuss about the anterior triangle of neck, we first discuss about its boundary and then its contents. So anteriorly, this is bounded by the midline of the neck, as we have discussed earlier in the midline. So this blue colored line is the midline. Then posterior boundary is formed by the anterior border of the sternocleidomastoid. Then the superior boundary is formed by the inferior border of the mandible. So this yellow colored line, this is the inferior border of the mandible, and the apex of this triangle is formed by the jugular notch. Jugular notch means suprasternal notch. Just above the sternum there is a notch which is known as jugular notch. So this highlighted area is the anterior triangle in front of the sternocleidomastoid, and here we also have demarcated the jugular notch, that is the suprasternal notch. Then the roof of this anterior triangle is made up of the skin and the superficial fascia, which is containing the platysma muscle, anterior jugular veins, these are the subcutaneous veins, submental lymph nodes, and terminal filaments of transverse cutaneous nerve. Below that we have the deep fascia. Then in the floor, that is the deeply most situated structures lies in the floor. These are the supraioid and infraioid muscles, the pharynx, the larynx, and the thyroid gland. So this is the anterior triangle. This anterior triangle has been further subdivided into different triangles with the help of digastric and the omohyoid muscles. Here we have there are two bellies of the digastric muscle, that is why it is named as digastric. This is the anterior belly and this is the posterior belly. So this posterior belly and the anterior belly of the digastric muscle, and this omohyoid muscle divides this triangle into 4 triangles. So here we can see the digastric muscle and the omohyoid muscle clearly. Now the further subdivisions of the anterior triangle are depicted in this image. There is submental triangle, which is unpaired, this yellow colored triangle, and submandibular triangle, and the third one is carotid triangle, and the fourth is muscular triangle. So there are 4 triangles in the anterior triangle of the neck. So first we discuss about the submental triangle. Submental means below the mentis. Mentis means at the midline when the two when there is joining, when there is symphysis menti formation in the midline, when the two parts of the mandible fuses in the midline, this is from the symphysis menti. And below that we have the submental triangle just below the chin. The submental triangle is inferior to the chin and it is unpaired, and it is a suprahyoid area. The lateral boundaries of the submental triangle is on the right and the left. We have the anterior bellies of the digastric muscle. So laterally we have the digastric muscle. Then the apex of the submental triangle is at the mandibular symphysis, where this is the mandibular symphysis, where the two mandible fuses in the midline during the development. This is the mandibular symphysis, this is the apex, and then the base, it is formed by the hyoid bone. So this is the base, which is formed by the hyoid bone, and then the floor, this floor is formed by the mylohyoid muscles, as we can see in the diagram. So this is the mylohyoid muscle which is forming the floor of the submental triangle. Then we come to the contents of the submental triangle. These are the submental group of lymph nodes and the anterior jugular vein. These are the only 2 contents which are found in this submental triangle. Then we come to the next second triangle, that is the digastric triangle. It is also known as submandibular triangle. So here we have highlighted the green colored, the digastric muscle, which is enclosing the submandibular triangle or digastric triangle. So it is an area which is inferior to the inferior border of the mandible and between the anterior and the posterior bellies of the digastric muscle. So these are the boundaries, that is anterior side and the posterior side. They are formed by the anterior and the posterior bellies of digastric muscle, and the base of this triangle is made up of the inferior border of the mandible. Then the floor of this triangle is made up of the mylohyoid and the hyoglossus muscles. So here we can see the floor, that is, this is the mylohyoid on the anterior side, and posteriorly we have hyoglossus muscle. These muscles are forming the floor. Then contents of the submandibular triangle. These are, in the anterior part we have some lymph nodes, submental artery, then mylohyoid vessels, facial vein, submandibular salivary gland, and in the posterior part we have external carotid artery, parotid gland, styloid process, styoglossus muscle, stylopharyngeus and the glossopharyngeal nerve, internal carotid artery and the internal jugular vein. So in the diagram we have summarized all the contents of the digastric triangle. So in the posterior part we can see the digastric triangle, what are the structures, that is their styloid process and the muscles which are attached to the styloid process, and the bifurcated common carotid artery. Then the next triangle is the carotid triangle. Here we have highlighted the carotid triangle with the help of red color. And the boundaries of the carotid triangle includes the anterior-superior boundary. It is formed by the posterior belly of digastric. So this is the anterior-superior boundary. And anterior-inferior boundary, it is the superior belly of omohyoid. And posteriorly we have sternocleidomastoid. So this is the boundary of the carotid triangle. Now in the roof we have skin, superficial fascia, and the investing layer of the deep fascia. Then the floor of this triangle is made up of the thyroid muscle, hypoglossus muscle, middle and inferior constrictors of the pharynx. These muscles forms the floor. So these are depicted in this pictographical diagram. The floor of the carotid triangle, the middle constrictor, inferior constrictor, the hypoglossus, and the thyroid muscle. Then content of the carotid triangle. There are major contents of this triangle are the common carotid artery and its branches, that is internal carotid artery, then internal jugular vein and vagus nerve. These structures are enclosed within a sheath known as carotid sheath. Now what is carotid sheath? It is a neurovascular structures of the carotid triangle. They are surrounded by a sheath which is a fascial sheath, and this is known as carotid sheath. And it is enclosing the common carotid artery and its branches like internal and external carotid artery, internal jugular vein, and the vagus nerve. So at the level of the superior border of the thyroid cartilage, the common carotid artery divides into external and internal carotid branches. So here we can see the level of bifurcation of the common carotid artery. Then come to the external carotid artery. It divides behind the neck of the mandible into two terminal branches. So here we can see that behind the neck of mandible, this is the terminal part of the external carotid artery, where it is dividing into a vertical branch, that is the superficial temporal artery, and a horizontal branch known as maxillary artery. These branches supplies to the scalp, face, maxilla, tongue, thyroid gland. And this is the mnemonic for the branches of external carotid artery. 7 angry ladies fighting over PMS. So 7 for superior thyroid artery, A for ascending pharyngeal, L for lingual, then fighting, F for facial, and over means O for occipital artery, then PMS, P for posterior auricular, then M for maxillary, and S for superficial temporal branch. So these are the 8 branches of the external carotid artery. Then the next content of the carotid triangle is the internal jugular vein. Here we can see the internal jugular vein is the continuation of the right sigmoid sinus at the jugular foramen. So this is the right sigmoid sinus at the jugular foramen. It forms the internal jugular vein. This vein possesses 2 bulbs, at the superior bulb and the inferior bulb. This inferior bulb lies at the junction of the internal jugular vein and the right subclavian vein, and the superior bulb is lying at the jugular foramen. There are tributaries for this vein like common facial vein, pharyngeal vein, lingual vein, superior thyroid veins, middle thyroid veins. So these veins are emptying directly into the internal jugular vein. Ultimately, this internal jugular vein drains into the right subclavian vein. Then the next content of the triangle, carotid triangle, is the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, and it is for parasympathetic information to the visceral organs of the body like respiratory, digestive, urinary systems, and it is important to control the heart rate, bronchoconstriction, and the digestive processes. So here we can see the vagus nerve between the internal jugular vein and the common carotid artery. Here is the vagus nerve. Then we have the ansa cervicalis. Ansa cervicalis means, ansa means loop. So there is a loop in the cervical region which is made up of the cervical spinal nerves. This is known as ansa cervicalis. So this loop lies in front of the carotid sheath, and it is formed by the union of 2 descending nerves. The first descending nerve is the descending hypoglossi, which is forming the superior root, and the second descending nerve is the descendens cervicalis, that is the inferior root. So these two roots combine to form a loop known as ansa cervicalis. Here in the diagram we can see the ansa cervicalis. This is the ansa cervicalis, this loop like this, and it supplies to the three infrahyoid muscles like omohyoid, sternothyroid, sternohyoid. Infrahyoid means, infra means below, and hyoid means below the hyoid bone. Those muscles are supplied by the ansa cervicalis. So this is omohyoid, sternothyroid, sternohyoid. And this is the ansa cervicalis formed by the descendens hypoglossi, that is the inferior branch of the hypoglossal nerve, that is the 12th cranial nerve, and C1 spinal nerve, and the inferior root is made up of C2 and C3 spinal nerves. Then the carotid sinus. There is a slight dilatation of the proximal part of the internal carotid artery, which may involve common carotid artery. This is innervated by the glossopharyngeal nerve, that is the 9th cranial nerve, through the carotid sinus nerve as the vagus nerve. This carotid sinus is a baroreceptor, that is prasoreceptor, that reacts to the changes in the arterial blood pressure. Now carotid sinus syndrome, the related applied for this is carotid sinus syndrome. We know that carotid sinus is richly supplied by the nerves, and in some persons the sinus is very hypersensitive. In such persons, uncertain rotation of the neck may cause slowing of the heart, and this is known as carotid sinus syndrome. The necktie should not be tied tightly because it may compress both the internal carotid arteries which are supplying to the brain. Then we have the carotid body. Here we can highlight it, the carotid body, and this is a small reddish brown ovoid mass of tissue that lies on the medial side of the bifurcation of common carotid artery in close relation to the carotid sinus. This is also supplied by the 9th cranial nerve and the 10th cranial nerve. This is a chemoreceptor that monitors the level of oxygen in the blood. It is stimulated by low levels of the oxygen and initiates a reflex that increases the heart rate and depth of respiration, cardiac rate, and the blood pressure. Then the next triangle, the last triangle of this anterior triangle, is the muscular triangle. So muscular triangle is bounded in front by the anterior midline of the neck from the hyoid bone to the sternum, and behind and above by the superior belly of the omohyoid, and behind and below by the anterior border of the sternocleidomastoid. So these are the boundaries of the muscular triangle. Then the contents of this triangle are infrahyoid muscles and some viscera like thyroid gland and the parathyroid glands. So this thyroid gland, it is an endocrine gland and lies deep to the sternothyroid and sternohyoid muscles and is located anteriorly in the neck at the level of C5 to T1 vertebrae. It is butterfly in shape, as we can see in the image. So here is the muscular triangle containing the thyroid gland. Thyroid gland consists of two lobes, right and left lobes, and these lobes are connected with the help of isthmus. And these isthmus lies in front of second and third tracheal rings. Now the infrahyoid muscles are the omohyoid, sternothyroid, sternohyoid. These are the infrahyoid muscles. Here we have given the attachments of these infrahyoid muscles. These are to be written if there is short note on the muscular triangle, or we can say the anterior triangle. So these are the attachments of these infrahyoid muscles. Now the clinical anatomy. The common anterior midline swellings of the neck, it may be due to enlarged submental lymph nodes, or it may be due to goiter, carcinoma of larynx, and enlarged lymph nodes in the suprasternal region. So here is the Ludwig's angina. It is a type of bacterial infection that occurs in the floor of the mouth under the tongue. It often develops after an infection of the root of the tooth, such as tooth abscess or mouth injury. It involves the involvement of some mandibular spaces, which results in enlargement, tenderness of the neck above the level of the hyoid bone, pain in the neck plus the floor of the mouth, and restricted neck movements. This is the Ludwig's angina. The image is given in the slide. So, this completes our topic, the anterior triangle. I hope you understand it. Thank you.